everyone, and welcome to Americans for Limited Government live stream. Thank you, Rick, for joining us today. I thought we'd try a little different format this afternoon, where we'll just kind of go rapid style through several different topics. The first one we want to get to right away is the pipeline issue up in Michigan. The White House had to walk back a statement from one of their press secretaries on Monday, basically admitting that, yeah, they are considering shutting down a pipeline that brings oil in from Canada. So let's play a quick video from Fox News so people kind of have an idea of what's going on here.
The Biden administration is reportedly considering shutting down another U.S. pipeline, even as gas prices are surging and as the White House admits Americans will have to pay more to heat their homes heading into winter.
Joining us now, Congressman Carlos Jimenez, House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee member. And Congressman, you're the perfect person to talk to about this because of that committee you sit on. We're talking about Line 5, which transports 540,000 barrels of crude oil from Canada to Michigan every day. And apparently the Biden administration is considering having that pipeline go the way of the Keystone Pipeline because indigenous tribes don't want the pipeline there. But all of this, Congressman, is happening amid a drastic surge in gas prices.
Yeah, it's insanity. Look, we cut the Keystone Pipeline. Now we're thinking of cutting another pipeline with over over 500,000 barrels a day of crude oil coming into the United States, and then he goes overseas and then he begs OPEC to produce more oil. It makes absolutely no sense. Just like everything this president's done, and every sector makes no sense whatsoever. And so, who's going to pay for it? It's going to be the poor and the middle class. Their gas prices all of our gas prices are going to go up, and when all of our gas prices go up, or when all of our energy prices go up, everything goes up. That means inflation goes up.
All right, Rick, go ahead. Your thoughts on this?
First of all, it's not insane if you know what they're trying to do. The Biden administration has made it very clear that they're going to impose the Green New Deal on America, whether we like it or not, whether Congress votes for it or not. And one of the ways to impose the Green New Deal is to disrupt the oil and gas market so significantly that oil and gas prices skyrocket, even more than they are now, making it so energy that is cheap and affordable suddenly becomes inexpensive or expensive, to make it so the energy provisions like solar and wind, which are expensive and unreliable, become more reliable and equally cost as much. This is about transforming America away from an oil and natural gas economy, and Biden is the dupe who is being put out there, who's going to carry the burden for doing this, in the hopes that in 2 to 3 years people will adjust to the new normal of very high gas prices and become more accepting of alternative energy sources. The irony is that those we are awash in gas and natural gas with Saudi Arabia natural gas. And yet Joe Biden is trying to stop us from being able to get that natural gas out of the ground and not only export it to Europe because they desperately need it, but also to be able to use it here in America. And we have a pipeline system in this country that is extensive. And the federal government, the Transportation Department, regulates that. The Line 5 pipeline specifically has been in effect since 1950. There's no reason. They're not saying there's leaks. They're not saying there's anything going on. Effectively, what they've done is somebody has found a couple of tribes to complain, to provide an excuse, much like the National School Board Association did on CRT, on parent going after parents and getting DOJ to go after parents. These tribes have been essentially recruited to complain about the Line 5 pipeline, not because it doesn't provide gas and oil, but because they just don't like it. It's not in there. It's underground. So it's not like this is in any way affecting anybody. But the fact is, the Biden administration is attacking every single source of natural gas and oil that they can, because that is part of making us energy dependent and more receptive to the green energy that they want us to bow a knee to.
And Lurtice on YouTube makes the comment that we have $10 a gallon gas. It will be coming. And I think that's to your point, Rick, that's what they want. That's what this administration wants to happen.
Yeah, some people think that this is a flaw, that they just don't get it. This isn't a flaw. This is a feature. This is what they're trying to do. It's like, so we have to just understand this. And I'm desperately trying to get members of Congress to understand that, A, there's no moderates in the Democratic Party, because we're not seeing any of those people standing up and yelling about this and voting with Republicans to stop it. So, A, there are no moderates in the Democratic Party. B, this is, we all want to attribute to, this is crazy, we don't understand it. Just think about it this way. If somebody's doing something and repeatedly doing something that's irrational, it doesn't make any sense, then you have to sit there and think, well, it must be rational to them. So what are they actually trying to accomplish? And once you look at it that way, and you remember that the Secretary of Energy for the Obama administration wanted $7 an hour gas in order to make it so the internal combustion engine became more expensive than the electric engine, than an electric vehicle. That's part of transforming America over to electric vehicles, is to make it so gas is expensive. Because as long as gas is inexpensive, they can't do that transformation. So just, that's what it is. It's blatant. We just have to, every time you say, and listeners out there and viewers, just every time you see something they do and you say that's insane, ask yourself, why would they do this? What are they trying to accomplish? And the answer will always be the fundamental transformation of America and the destruction of the free enterprise system, because that is what they're trying to accomplish. They might call it, oh, we're going to deal with climate change, but ultimately to do that, their prescription is to end the capitalist system in America and have top-down control of all the resources. And that is very simple. It's understandable. And once you look through that lens, you suddenly understand why they're doing it. Doesn't mean we don't fight it just as hard, but let's not fool ourselves into thinking that they just don't understand and we're going to be able to rationalize, give them a rational argument. They don't understand because they've rejected that argument and they're doing something else. So so just understand that. We have to take them on. We have to get our members of Congress to understand this, so they're not sitting there thinking that they're dealing with a bunch of people where we all have the same goals. They don't. They like high-priced natural gas and oil. They like that. That is to their advantage. So consequently,
the next thing we want to talk about is,
sorry, long answer. Sorry.
That's okay. The Biden White House is now urging employers to ignore a federal court's injunction against the vaccine mandate, the Biden mandate. The White House spokesperson actually said, we're encouraging employers to just keep going with the vaccines, in complete violation of what the court has said. What's your take there?
Well, my take's simple. Those corporations need to take a step back and say, wait a second, if the vaccine mandate's unconstitutional, should we be committing corporate suicide by forcing, in some cases, 25% of our workforce out of a job and out of our company, with all of the resulting costs, with all the resulting drop in production, the inability to meet basic deadlines and the like. So they need to ask themselves very carefully. A Walmart, for instance, needs to sit there and say, listen, our employees stood behind cash registers and kept store shelves full for a year and a half during this pandemic, when it was really where we didn't know what was going on, where it really was dangerous. And they came to work every day and did that. And now we're going to tell those employees, if you don't take a shot, which you don't think may not feel comfortable with from either a scientific or from a religious perspective, if you don't take a shot, we're going to fire you. That's what they're going to do. Walmart needs to stay, and companies like Walmart need to take a step back and tell the Biden administration, prove it's constitutional, and then we'll consider doing this, taking this step. And that's what needs to happen. Every company needs to do that. And interestingly, those companies that are in states like Texas, where the Texas government put in a prescription that said you can't fire people based on this. And so those companies, particularly those ones with offices in Texas or corporate headquarters in Texas, American Airlines, Southwest Airlines, lots of oil companies and the like, they need to say, wait a second, we're going to follow Texas law, and not an unconstitutional federal mandate.
All right, Rick. The next thing we want to talk about are the elections in New Jersey and Virginia. There's been some developments in the last 24 hours. In Virginia, we all thought that Republicans had gained a one-seat majority in the House of Delegates, which is our House of Representatives. But now it looks like there are 2 seats that the Democrats have been able to find some more votes. They've really narrowed the gap. In one case, there's only a 94 vote difference. And the other one, it's 127 vote difference. Now, the Republican challenger in both cases is still in the lead, but the lead has significantly narrowed, and it's really within the where there could be a recount. So what's going on there?
Yeah. Initially, we thought that the Republicans had won 1 seat. They actually won 2 after all the initial counting was done. And so the Republicans held a 2-seat majority, 52-48, in the Virginia House of Delegates. Subsequently, Virginia kept receiving votes through mail until last Friday. And in that late dump of votes, 2 of these seats that the Democrats had lost, the margin of victory was narrowed to within 0.5%, which triggers an automatic recount. That recount, what it happens with that is it is a straight recount. They go 1 for you, 1 for you, and they look at the ballots and they basically make sure that they were all counted properly. There should not be any additional ballots added at this point. So it's just a straight, counting of those ballots. And there'll be some legal wrangling over that. One of the interesting aspects of this is Americans for Limited Government, along with Virginians for America First, did a lot of effort in terms of the mail-in ballots and discovered that between 5 and 7% of the mail-in ballots were sent in by people who actually didn't live at the place where they were supposed to be voting from. In fact, some of them hadn't lived there for 20 years. And while there was no provision in Virginia law to allow for provisional ballots or setting those aside, that may come into play as we look at as this occurs and as this voting, as they do the 1 for you kind of counting. Taking a look at who those people were, all those mail ballots will allow us to go and say, wait a second, you had a significant number of ballots that were not where they clearly were not eligible to vote. And the only recourse that is allowed under law would be to redo the election. And that's a pretty difficult standard to meet. But it is, in fact, something that could be done downstream if the late arriving ballots tip the balance, so the Democrats end up keeping it to a 50-50 split in the House of Delegates. So there's a lot of things going on. We're heavily involved in it, and we're monitoring it, and we're trying to make certain that the election doesn't get stolen.
Rick, I just put up a screen from New Jersey. Apparently, the incumbent Democrat, who we all thought lost his seat a week ago, he now claims that he has discovered 12,000 uncounted ballots. So who knows? Is that race still in question?
It's New Jersey, so yes. Let me give you a little background. I was the National Rifle Association lobbyist in New Jersey back in quite a while ago. And so I'm a little bit familiar with a lot of the players involved here. The county this district is part of multiple counties. The total number of votes were counted on election day was about between 62 and 63,000 total votes. To find 12,000 ballots that mysteriously showed up at some county office somewhere that hadn't been counted means that 20% of the overall ballots, 20%, were suddenly discovered out of the blue much later in the process than after the original votes had been counted. Now, the chances of this being legitimate are between 0 and 0. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to try to count them. It doesn't mean that the judges in that area won't accept it. Now, recognize that the area that is under dispute is a pretty rural area of New Jersey. It has Little Fingers. It has some Camden County influence, but it's a relatively rural district. 30 years ago, it was a dead red district. It was all Republican. It got redrawn in such a way that they brought enough Democrat votes into it to make it a Democrat district. Senate President Steve Sweeney is who has held that seat for 20 years. And now they're going to sit there and try to determine whether or not these 12,000 ballots that are discovered are real. Like I say, the chances of them being real are 0, but the chances that they get counted is 50-50. And I think all of us know that if they get counted, they won't exactly reflect the actual votes that were cast out, the other 63,000 votes, in terms of what proportion voted for which candidate. So this is all about, if you want to take a look at something that's just blatant, this is a blatant attempt to steal an election. And the question will be, will the state of New Jersey allow them to get away with it? Stay tuned, because the Camden County Democrat machine is very powerful, and they exert a huge amount of influence. And in old school machine politics, nothing should ever surprise you.
All right. Thank you, Rick. And I wanted to get back a little bit to the COVID vaccine mandates. The South Carolina governor, along with other Republican governors, are pushing back against these mandates. What's going on there, and what can governors do?
Well, in South Carolina, it's a unique situation in that they have a state OSHA. They are, and so the OSHA, there is no federal OSHA in South Carolina. There's 22 states that have this. Alaska, Alabama, South Carolina, 3 that come off the top of my head that I remember. But there's 22 states that have state OSHAs. What that means is the state enforces the safety and health laws in that state. And it is state employees who are doing the enforcement actions. Hence, a governor like Governor Henry McMaster can say, the state employees who we're paying are not going to be enforcing an emergency order that is unconstitutional. And he can make that dictate to his employees. And there's not a whole lot that the federal OSHA can do about it. Now, what federal OSHA is trying to do about it is they're trying to remove the state OSHA status from Alabama and South Carolina, and I think one other state, in order to regain control of the enforcement of the OSHA laws in those states, specifically because of COVID. So there is a jostling back and forth right now, but the bottom line is OSHA doesn't have any federal inspectors in South Carolina. They don't have a right to inspect in South Carolina. And so Henry McMaster is telling his state employees, we're not going to do this. And he has, as the governor of the state, he has every right to do it. It is a fantastic move. It is exactly what needed to be done. And it's our hope that other states with state OSHAs will take similar actions.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Well, with that, we will close it out. Thank you very much for joining us for an Americans for Limited Government live stream. Stay tuned tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow we'll be talking about. We just sort of wait to see what the outrage of the day is. And with the Biden administration, we are always gifted with many outrageous things. So we appreciate it. And if you like what you see and you agree that we need limited government, follow us, subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, and tell your friends about us. So thanks, everyone.